What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing. We are yet again live on YouTube, and we are live on all your podcasting platforms. Today, we are going to preview the defensive tackles in the 2026 NFL Draft, a position I've been dreading. Not super crazy about any of these guys, to be honest. We will not only cover the defensive tackles in this episode, but we're also going to go over a couple of the top 30 visits, as well as why the top 30 visits are important for the Packers. Let's begin with those top 30 visits and why they're important. Number one, the Packers have basically picked 25% of the guys they've had in for top 30 visits throughout Goody's tenure, which is wild. So they have, I'm going to read this stat to you guys. This is real. Goody's been GM since 2018. They have drafted, traded for, or signed 50 of the players that they've had in for top 30 visits since Goody's been GM. So almost a quarter of them have become Packers over time, whether it be after their initial rookie contract or through trade. The Packers bring guys in for top 30 visits for a variety of reasons, but we know for a fact they don't just do it for a smokescreen. They like the guys they bring in. Last season, Anthony Belton, Matthew Golden, John Williams, Micah Robinson, Taylor Algorithm, there is a bunch of them. We can go over and over again. So every time we do an episode, we're going to talk about any guy they bring in for top 30. If we haven't already done scouting reports on them, we will do them. The first guy that they brought in was Ted Hurst, and we talked about him on the wide receiver episode last week. Ted Hurst was a guy I liked quite a bit. I believe I mentioned I liked Stribling a little bit better, Dejon Stribling. Ted Hurst is probably a round 3 guy. Could I see them picking him in round 2? Yes. He also attended the Senior Bowl. So Ted Hurst is clearly a guy that's on the Packers' radar. If you guys want to hear the scouting report on Ted Hurst, I went over it last week, so I will not bore you with more on Ted Hurst. However, I didn't get to tell you guys that he was a top 30 visit until after I already recorded it. When I was editing, I added a little thing at the top. Those of you that are listening to the podcast, you didn't see that. But Ted Hurst was, in fact, a top 30 visit. They also love the Senior Bowl guys. We talked about the Senior Bowl. Like I said before, Ted Hurst was a Senior Bowl guy. The next guy that they brought in, we got to talk about. We're going to talk about him in a little bit more detail on next week's episode. I'll probably do a little bit of a scouting report now, actually. But his name is Romello Height from Texas A&M. He's actually an edge defender. And like I said, we're going to go over him because he was a top 30 visit, and he was a Senior Bowl guy. So there's a very good chance the Packers like him. I will talk about the thresholds next week in the edge group. They have bent those thresholds, though. Look no further than Colin Oliver last season. They like bigger guys, typically 6'3", 6'4", and above, and then over 260 pounds. Well, Colin Oliver's like 6'1", 240, and Romello Height Jr. is actually, Romello Height, I don't think he's a junior. He's actually 6'3", 240. So when you look at the Packers, they've clearly started to take on guys that are a little bit smaller. Who's the defensive coordinator, Ian? It is Jonathan Gannon. He runs a 3-4. 3-4 is different than the 4-3. We won't go into that today. But Hassan Reddick played for Gannon in Philly and had a breakout season. He's very undersized. Now, as far as Romello Height, he's 83rd in the consensus board. That's right with the Packers pick in round 3. It kind of reminds me of Anthony Belton Jr., though. Or I keep saying Jr. Anthony Belton last year. Anthony Belton was actually 98th on the consensus board. If you guys remember my final mock draft, I said the Packers are going to take Anthony Belton in round 3. I was almost certain of it. I was almost right. They took him in round 2. I thought they should have waited for round 3, but they clearly didn't think he'd be there. And I like what I saw from Belton last season. The reason I bring up the comparison, though, is a lot of people thought Anthony Belton, the Packers definitely like him. He's probably a round 3 guy. Well, they took him in round 2. I see a very similar trajectory with Romello Height. He's a guy that's clearly a round 3 in the consensus. Would it shock me if the Packers took him in round 2? No, it would not. Let's talk about him a little bit. He ran a 4.64. He had a 96 percentile vertical, 93 percentile broad jump. So the dude's a freak. He's really, really athletic. He had a 92 grade from PFF, so really solid there. 92 pass rush grade, 91 grade from true pass sets. So if you guys remember what that means, this takes into account there's no play action. It's just a chance for them to rush the passer. In all those scenarios, they get a percentage and a grade. He had a 21.8% pass rush win rate, which is crazy. So that's actually like far above average. Before we get into strength and weaknesses, I do think he reminds me a little bit of Donovan Ezeraku last year. And you might remember, guys, I talked about Ezeraku quite a bit as potentially a second-round guy. I wasn't really high on him. I know my cousin Laven, if you're listening, I know you were really high on him. There were a lot of Packers people that were really high on him, but I don't think that Romello Height is quite as good of a run defender as Araku was. But similar guy, undersized, but a ton of pass rush moves, has a pass rush plan that they continue to sort of develop over time. As far as his strengths, he's got a great spin move. That can get way better. I believe that firmly. Fantastic burst and acceleration. He's got really long strides. He's really built. He's a very long strider. He actually looks taller than 6'3", ironically. He rushes with urgency and high energy on every snap. This is from NFL.com. Very important. He has a motor. The one thing that the Packers guys that they've drafted have in common, very high motor. LVN, that was one of the things everybody said about him. Rashawn Gary as well, super high motor guy. And Kingsley Enagbare, when they drafted him in the 3rd round, very similar. Very loose in the hips. He's got great bend, which again, he's able to get around the tackles very, very well. He's got a great punch-pull technique to get off blocks in the run game. Will that translate to the next level? I'm a little skeptical about that. But very above-average bag of tricks as a pass rusher. That's where I think is the most exciting for him. His frame is the first weakness we'll get into, but I think he can actually build a ton of size. 6'3", 241. I mean, there's a lot of room there to grow yet. He's just not big enough. He needs to add some size. That's the biggest weakness on his list here. Doesn't have great instincts in the run game. He gets washed out a little bit too easily. That's all over the tape, just to be honest. Struggles to hold the point and leverage gaps. That's going to be tough when he gets against the pros, that's for sure. He misses his base and contact balance. He falls over a lot. That's what that means, and that's very true. In the run game, I think he's going to have a hard time. His play strength hurts him when he tries to redirect blocks. So is this a guy you take in round 2? I probably wouldn't. He's a round 3 guy for me. The Packers like him. Top 30 visit, Senior Bowl, and he did well at the Senior Bowl by all accounts. If you have Sorrell, you have Colin Oliver. Edge is still in need, though. LVN is here for probably 2 more seasons, this season, and then if they exercise the 5th-year option, which I think they will, you never can have enough pass rush. And obviously they have Micah for the next 3 or 4 seasons. I think he's probably going to be in Green Bay for the rest of his career. I think that if they drafted Romello Height, though, I think he could come in and have a big impact. He would have a bigger impact than any of the guys that we're about to talk about, ironically, on the defensive tackle preview. I do ultimately think he's probably not going to be a Packer, but we got to keep an eye on him. Let's talk about the next guy, Charles Demings. If you guys remember from the cornerback preview, we talked about him too. It's almost like Titletown Talk might know who the Packers like. It's crazy. Stephen F. Austin University, that's where he came from. So very small school. We did a full scouting report on him, so I'm not going to go into another scouting report on him. If you want to listen to my Charles Demings scouting report, go to the cornerback preview. Likely round 4, round 5 guy. Top 30 visit and Senior Bowl guy, so check. He's got enough size to do as well. He's going to be high on the Packers' radar in that round 4, round 5 category. Last guy we're going to talk about, when I saw this last night, I was very, very excited. This guy is one of my favorite players in the entire draft. At a position we haven't talked a lot about, running back. His name is Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas. One of the most freaky athletic specimens I've ever seen. I'm going to read the entire RAS out for you guys, but he ran a 4.33 at 6'1", 223 pounds. By the way, this is not a glitch. I'm paused because it's even just reading it's crazy. His RAS card, let's read it really quick. He had a 39-inch vertical, a 10.8 broad jump, a 10 split of 1.51, and then that 40-yard dash at 4.33. So he was one of the most athletic running backs that ever has tested at the combine. He ranked first out of 2,115 running backs in the history of the combine. So this guy, whether you guys think they should take a running back or not, I would have no problem with this. As you can probably tell from my tone, I was excited about this. One of the most athletic running backs to ever test. Now, who does he remind me of before I get into the scouting report and all that and where he's at? He's like a bigger James Starks. If you guys go watch the highlight, you don't even need to watch the tape. Just go type in Mike Washington Jr. highlights on YouTube. The dude he reminds me so much of James Starks, but he's bigger and he's faster. So he's currently 66 on consensus. PFF has him at 71. The Packers have him as a round 2 guy. I would bet my entire savings account on it that he is a round 2 guy through and through. Last year for PFF, 78 overall grade, 84 rushing grade. This is the craziest thing, though. He has 3.86 yards after contact. So every time he gets hit, he gets another 4 yards. That's wild. Strengths, insane amount of size, blended with elite speed and quickness. Agile feet, very loose hips. Again, for a guy who's 6'1", 220, very, very quick. Very good at reading blocks. You can see it on tape. He knows when to do the cut back. And he actually reminds me a bit of Marshawn Lloyd. If you guys watch the Marshawn Lloyd tapes, he's got a fantastic cutback ability. Can manhandle corners with his size. Yeah. So there's a play against Texas, and this is on the highlight tape, by the way, where he just truck sticks one of the Texas safeties. I think it's a Texas safety. Completely puts him on his ass. He falls forward for extra yards very easily. And one thing that is on the scouting report that I think is a massive room for growth in his game is catches out of the backfield. There's a couple plays where they do swing passes to him off the sideline. Again, 6'1", 224 pounds. The dude can take a ball all the way in the pass game. Weaknesses. This is a lot of my feeling on him. I added a couple here that are not on NFL.com. He runs too upright at times. That's what I didn't like about James Starks. That's why I don't think James Starks ever became an elite running back, was he just ran too upright. Play strength is inconsistent. He doesn't always use his size. He needs to be more willful between the tackles. And the main thing is he has a fumbling problem. But if you guys have been paying attention, the Packers have guys that they've drafted that have fumbling problems. Look no further than Ahman Green. I know they didn't draft him, but they traded for him. And Marshawn Lloyd had a fumbling problem in the college game as well. I think A.J. Dillon also had some issues in his carrying ability. But they don't mind if a guy has fumbling problems as long as they think they can coach it out of him. The last thing, pass pro can be inconsistent despite his size. Now, we'll do a deeper scouting report on him. We're not going to do a big running back episode. It'll be similar to DT's here, where I'm just going to pick some guys that could kind of fall in that round 2 to round 5 category. But we'll do a deeper dive on Mike Washington Jr. In the running back episode. Will they take a running back at 52? I think there's a decent chance. They see running back on this team. I know the NFL has not seen it this way for a while, but the Packers 100% see running back as a premium position. Look no further than the contract they gave Aaron Jones. 4 years, $48 million after, I believe it was 2020. Josh Jacobs, they gave a big contract. A.J. Dillon, they picked in round 2 back in 2020. That was not a popular pick. I didn't mind it. And then Marshawn Lloyd was round 3 in 2024. Now, has Marshawn Lloyd panned out? No, we don't know, right? He hasn't played at all. The thing that you cannot count on Marshawn Lloyd being the future of your running back room at this point. Now, is there a chance he could be? Yes. I think that Marshawn Lloyd is not going to figure into any of their decisions early in the draft. If they see a running back they like, they will pick him. And in tomorrow's episode, well, I'm going to record it tomorrow. I don't know when you guys will see it, but we're going to do like an inventory of the Packers position groups. And running back is a need. Whether we want to admit it or not, I think if they take a running back in round 2, people are going to be mad. If they took a running back, it's going to be Mike Washington Jr., and I would be thrilled. So we'll save that for another time. Let's get into the main topic, the reason you guys are all here, defensive tackles. I left a lot of names off of this list. There's a lot of honorable mentions that they could take in the later rounds, but I wanted to keep this as short as I could and keep guys who I think are more in that round 2 to round 5 range. Warren Brinson, he was a guy like that last year. They picked him in round 6, I believe. He was a premium Packers pick. He was obvious from the start. But DT is a very thin position for this team, and it's very similar to running back, receiver, cornerback, where you got guys this year, but there's not a lot of guys next year and beyond. When we look at the guys that are there, we got Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse. Javon Hargrave will be here 2 more seasons. Jordan Riley, I liked him. They picked him up mid-season off the Giants practice squad last year. He, I believe, broke his ankle. He probably won't be back this next season, or if he is, it'll be later. Actually, it might have been an Achilles. But they're going to be running a 3-4 base this season. That means they need 2-3 techs and a nose tackle on base. We don't know who the nose tackle is going to be. There's a lot of postulation right now about saying it might be, I hope it's not, Javon Hargrave. And I think Javon Hargrave would be a bad decision there. He's probably, and again, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but they need more of a run stuffer. If they think that Javon Hargrave is going to be their DT or their nose tackle, I think that's a mistake. Now, he's versatile enough. He can play nose. He has played nose. He can also brush the passer in nickel packages. So it would make sense if they wanted to do that. But on early downs, who's going to stop the run? That's the mystery, and that's why a lot of the guys we're going to talk about are more in that nose tackle camp. If we look at the team, it's very possible the Packers are higher on Nazir Stackhouse than we are. I brought this up. I actually did one of the Pack-A-Day podcast Q&As with Andy Herman, and I asked him about this. He said that he hopes they're not high on Nazir Stackhouse. I happen to disagree with Andy and anyone else. I think the Packers like Nazir Stackhouse. So I think there's a very good chance that they leave the first 3 rounds of this draft, well, technically 4 rounds, without a nose tackle. If they don't pick one in the first 3 rounds before round 5, that'll be your indicator, guys. They either think that Javon Hargrave is the nose tackle or they think that Nazir Stackhouse is the nose tackle. So that's interesting. Now, in my opinion, again, taking all of this aside, it's probably the biggest need on the team right now. I don't think that you can go into 2026 here with Stackhouse as your guy, and I don't want Javon Hargrave to be the guy, but the Packers don't tend to value nose tackle that high. Stackhouse was a UDFA. They picked TJ Slayton in the 5th round. He was a nose tackle. A good one, by the way. So it's possible that even if one of these guys is here that we talk about in the draft, they might pick another position. And I think we all need to be ready for that possibility. In terms of defensive tackles in free agency still, that are nose tackles, DJ Reader's still out there. Calais Campbell's still out there. I would be ecstatic for either one. DJ Reader is not going to sign until after the draft. If they do pick someone up after the draft, it does not count against the comp pick formula. Could there be some cap casualties, post-draft cuts? 100%. Another guy out there, Christian Wilkins. I got a DM about Christian Wilkins a few weeks ago. I think the Packers are going to stay away from him, not because of the off-field stuff, which I think is no big deal, but I think the injury he had to his foot was like really, really bad. I don't remember the exact injury, but it scared teams off the entire year last year. Reportedly, he's healthy, but I've been a big fan of his since he came into the league. He's not a nose tackle. He's a 3-tech. He's ready to play in 2026, supposedly. It's not going to cost a ton. If they wanted to go that route, I'd be happy about it, but he's got a lot of suitors. So let's get into the names to watch for the Packers. So their thresholds are a lot more unpredictable in comparison to other positions, and that's why I'm going to kind of lead with caution here. They like an 80th percentile or better broad jump, 6'2 or 295. Or 6'2 and 295 in terms of weight and height. I'll start off by saying this. There are a lot of guys that I'm leaving off this list for time's sake. There's a lot of guys I'm leaving off there to 3-techs. If I'm being honest, I'm not a great evaluator at DT. I certainly got better with it last year because I thought they were definitely going to pick one last year, and they didn't until round 6 with Warren Brinson. Now, to be fair, he was a clear Packers fit, perfect Packers fit through and through. I don't know a lot about this. So as far as scouting reports go, I watched about 10 minutes on each of these guys. We'll use NFL.com as the bones of our scouting report as a framework. The first guy we're going to talk about is Dominique Orange out of Iowa State, a.k.a. Big Citrus, which fantastic name. His last name's Orange, and he's Big Citrus. Fantastic name. He's a Packer fan favorite. I've been seeing him in almost every mock draft that I've come across. I do not like him at pick 52. I'll just say that. He's probably the best nose tackle that they could pick there, pure nose tackle. But would I want them to pick Dominique Orange over a corner, a receiver, a running back? I don't. Will the Packers look at Dominique Orange as a premium pick? I doubt it. So round 3 and beyond, round 4 really and beyond is where I think they're going to pick a DT. But we need to go over these guys anyway because I think there's still a chance. So Orange is 6'2", 322, so a little on the shorter side, but still fits the profile. Does not have any athletic testing, which is a common theme. He's 66 on the consensus board, 72 on PFF's board. So PFF has him a little bit lower. He's firmly a late second, early third round range on the consensus and PFF boards. I don't think he's going to be there at 84 because there are teams that value nose tackles much better. So I think you're either going to get him in round 2 or you're not going to get him at all. And that's why I'm being more and more convinced that every day that they're just not going to take a DT unless one of the top guys fall. So last year with Dominique Orange, he actually took a step back in 2025. He had a 68 grade. 24 was an 82. He played 412 snaps last year at nose tackle. So he's clearly going to be a nose with very little pass rush juice. And it's no more evident than the fact that he had a 67 run defense grade, only 10 hurries in all those snaps. So he does not have a lot of juice, and that's why you got to make the calculation if you're the Packers. Do you spend your first pick in the draft on a nose tackle who can't rush the passer? I think they should not. It's hard because I think that nose tackle is probably the biggest hole on the team. So I don't know. It's concerning, right? I really don't know what they're going to do here. Strengths for Dominique Orange, long arms, very, very long arms. I think he has like a 7-foot wingspan, big hands, very obvious on tape. He can just eat people up in the running game. If you get your hands on you, he's done. Or they're done. Sorry. Insanely powerful in the upper and lower body. He has a really nice sidestep move for being a big guy. Quick reactor. He does a great job of getting hands on runners. So in other words, if a running back gets through his gap, and this is all over his tape, he'll just get an arm on you and he will at least slow you down. Which, if you guys remember last year when they put Carl Brooks at defensive tackle, at nose tackle at times, Carl Brooks would get a hand on the guy, but wouldn't even slow him down. And that's where TJ Slaton was good too, is in the run game, he would at least hold his position well enough to where he could get a hand on the guy and slow him down, and then the running backs could fill in the back end and hit. Dominique Orange can do that. And he's probably better at it than anyone I've seen on the Packers. I think Nazir Stackhouse can get there, but we just haven't seen it. Weaknesses for Dominique Orange: hand usage is really inconsistent. His body control is average to below average. The main one, though, is very little pass rushing upside. When we look at him overall, do you take a nose tackle in round 2? I would not. And personally, I do not think the Packers will either. The last thing, it's all over the scouting reports. I agree on this one as well. Struggles to take on double teams. That's his entire job. Yeah. So if you guys are watching the YouTube channel, I'm concerned. My face will tell you all that. So with Dominique Orange, some team's going to like him enough to probably take him in round 2. If it's the Packers, it's because they just don't see Nazir Stackhouse as the guy. I just don't like the idea of taking a need at 52, unless all the other guys are gone. Now, in round 3, if he falls, I'm all here for it. He's a great nose tackle. He'd be a huge upgrade for the Packers, but do you pick a guy that's just a nose tackle in round 2? I would not. Next guy, Grayson Halton out of Oklahoma. He's a really fun player. Freak show athlete. I would actually take him at 52 before I would take Dominique Orange. He's more of a 3-tech. 8.38 RAS score, 6'2", 293. So just a little bit under the weight for a Packers pick. His broad jump is in the 93rd percentile, which is fantastic. Senior Bowl guy. And as I mentioned previously, again, Packers love Senior Bowl guys. He ran a 4.82. Pretty good for 6'2", 293. A 1.710 split. That's fantastic. So really good burst. He can move. Much more of a 3-tech. Like I said, he has done a little bit of nose tackle. 75 snaps at nose tackle last year. The rest were at 3-tech. 84 grade last year from PFF. 76 pass rush grade. So much better than Dominique Orange. 22 hurries, 10% pass rush win rate. Solid. If he is a guy in round 3 that you pick, much more well-rounded player than Dominique Orange. Much less quality nose tackle. But he's 74 on consensus. PFF has him at 70. He's a round 3 guy. If they took him in round 2, I would be much happier than if they took Dominique Orange, which is not popular based on what I've seen from Packers mock drafts. Strengths for Grayson Halton. He does a great job of getting skinny and shooting gaps, very similar to Devontae Wyatt. And you see it kind of the early Carl Brooks from what we saw his rookie season. Just kind of wins early, really good hand quickness, can kind of shoot inside. He does a great job tracking the ball carrier, so he kind of knows where the ball carrier is going. A lot of defensive tackles get lost in the run game. They sort of read blocks, and with zone blocking, they kind of purposely use that against you. He's pretty good at kind of figuring out where the ball carrier is actually at. Above average quickness at bringing the ball carrier down. Yeah. Foot agility and body control make him perfect for stunts in games. So I want to remind you guys, Gannon uses a ton of stunts in games in his scheme. So that's going to be good. His biggest strength, though, the thing that jumps off the tape for me, his closing speed is outstanding. So once he wins, he gets there quick. Now, the key is winning. He has to win a little bit more consistently, but much, much, much higher ceiling as a pass rusher and a run stopper than I think Dominique Orange. Okay? Negatives. He's got trouble gaining leverage at times. Very true. Struggles to gain control and shed blocks early. In other words, he wins late. That's a difficult thing because in the college game, you can get away with that. Not in the pro game. Inconsistent in his run fits, and he struggled against athletic guards. Ooh, that's going to be a problem in the NFL because basically all the guards are athletic. And then his hand usage doesn't always catch up to his footwork. That's something you can coach up. I think his hand usage is actually better than what the scouting report says here. Not that I don't trust Lance Zierlein. I do. But I think his hand usage was pretty solid. But I think more or less what Lance Zierlein's saying here is that it just doesn't always play up to his footwork, which is fair. But I really like Grayson Halton. He's one of my favorite defensive tackles in the draft. He's a round 3 guy. Would not shock me to see someone take him in round 2. If I'm the Packers, I would not take him in round 2. But if they did, I would not be mad about it. Next guy, Darrell Jackson Jr. from Florida State. No combine testing, which is kind of disappointing, but he's 6'4", 315. So he's a mammoth of a human being. We don't know if he's a perfect Packers type guy, but he's a Senior Bowl guy. The Packers have actually met with him 3 times. Okay, so I don't think he's been a top 30 visit, but they've met with him 3 different times, which is just interesting. If they bring him in for a top 30, I'll report it on the podcast. But he played a little bit heavier during the season. So 315 at the combine, he played over 330 this season during the season. When you work out with the combine and you prep for all these drills, you do tend to lose a lot of weight, which obviously makes sense. I would probably drop a bunch of weight too if I was running and sprinting and doing jumps all the time, right? For him, he's a mix of nose tackle and 3-tech. He played 159 snaps at nose. So there's definitely some versatility there. I think that they might see him as a nose tackle potential. He kind of reminds me of Hargrave. Like, he can play nose, but it's probably not the best use of resources there. His PFF grade last year, 74.4. He did have an 81 run defense grade, which is good. So better than Grayson Halton did. And an 8.9% run stop rate, which is solid. But another guy whose pass rush strengths is not too great. 58 pass rush grade and only a 5% pass rush win rate. So compared to Romello Height, who we went over as an edge, in the 21 to 22% win rate range, not so good for our boy here, Darrell Jackson Jr., 5%. Strengths for Darrell Jackson Jr., 7'2" wingspan, massive hands, makes it easy for him to shed blocks, right? When he's on, he can command 2 gaps with strength and speed, size. Slow down runners through gaps with one arm while being blocked. Yeah, that's similar to Dominique Orange as well. I will say this about Darrell Jackson Jr. I just don't see a lot of pass rush upside here. In terms of nose tackle upside, I actually think he might have a higher ceiling than Dominique Orange. So he's kind of an interesting player. Last thing on the strengths, got some nice late explosion on some of his pass rush attempts. He does win late. That's something you can work with. But again, I just don't see him as a fit for Green Bay, personally, for what they need. Weaknesses, narrow base and tight hips. That's a problem. Upper body power doesn't match his lower body. That can be fixed, of course. Struggles with contact balance. And his movement is more mechanical than pure athletic. That's what Lance Zierlein said. That is very evident. There's a couple guys like this, too, where they just aren't. You can tell they're not athletes first. They know what they're supposed to do. They can win with technique. But it shows in sort of mechanical and robotic at times. And that's what I would say about Darrell Jackson Jr. He can weaponize his length as a pass rusher. It just hasn't been consistent. Now, with the weaknesses, and this is why I say his ceiling might be better than Dominique Orange, everything that's on his weakness list can be fixed. So he's a little bit more versatile. He's got a little bit more even split between nose tackle and 3-tech. I think he has more pass rushing upside than Dominique Orange too. Would I pick him in round 3? Probably not. Someone's going to like him though. But I think Darrell Jackson Jr. is a guy we got to pay attention to. The Packers clearly have him on their radar. Remember that name. The next guy, probably my favorite pick, round 4 is where I'd pick him. Dante Corleone from Cincinnati. They call him the Godfather, which is cool. He's an interesting guy. Definitely not a Packers type necessarily, but he's a nose tackle. And he's got a little bit more upside as a pass rusher. So where it's going to be interesting is he's 6'1". He's short, right? But he's over 340, which is wild. No athletic testing. And again, Goody doesn't typically take guys who don't have any athletic testing. Round 4 is where I take him. I would love, if they came out of the draft, let's just say they went like Dalen Everett round 2, and then they took like Ted Hurst in round 3, and then they go and pick like a Dante Corleone in round 4, I'd be ecstatic. Round 4 is where the first round where I'd actually look at a pure nose tackle. So he's currently 110 on consensus, 107 on PFF. So he's a round 4 guy. 72 overall grade last year, but he did have an 80 run defense grade. So pass rush was a problem, as we've heard with most of these guys. 59 pass rush grade. Ugh, not so good. His strengths, I wrote these myself. The NFL ones weren't really loading for me. But size, obviously he's big. He's just not tall. So that's a strength still. Great play strength. He uses his size very, very well. Very nice short area quickness as well. His club move is fantastic. He uses it a lot, actually. Even when he does rush the passer, it just kind of becomes predictable at times. He's always looking for the ball after first contact. And I do think he's got a bull rush that has a little bit more upside than you'd expect. Weaknesses, his first step is pretty inconsistent. His shorter arms, that's a problem. And these are from NFL.com here. Struggles to beat angle blocks. Hips are pretty stiff. and his pass rushing production was pretty bad. So can you beat a guard or a tackle around the edge? Not him. Okay. Now he's got a great nickname. I've heard him mentioned by a lot of Packers content creators. If they picked him any earlier than round 4, I'd be upset with it. So again, just a guy I like, but not a guy I'm crazy about. Next guy, Demonte Capehart from Clemson. He's a freak show. This guy is athletic, fantastic size and speed. The only thing missing from being like a perfect Packers type was his broad jump. It wasn't that great. It was 63rd percentile broad jump. You got to look past that, though. This guy's an athlete. 9.96 RAS score. That's a lot. That's a high score. 6'4", 313. He ran a 4.85 40-yard dash. And his vertical jump was in the 96th percentile. So he's an athlete. In terms of type, he's a 3-tech guy. He's played a little bit of nose, though. And I think there's potential there if he added some more size to play nose. He's definitely big enough to play nose, even as it is now. And that frame can be built on. If they don't re-sign Devonte Wyatt, or they don't plan to, you could see him as a very intuitive 3-tech replacement for them. He's a round 4, round 5 guy for sure, but I really like Capehart. He's probably my favorite of the guys that we've talked about so far. 71 grade in 2025, only a 62 pass rushing grade, but I think there's a ton of potential as a pass rusher here. With that kind of athleticism, as long as he can be coached and he can be taught, you can get a lot better at your pass rush. Just getting a bag of tricks that you can tap into. 76 run defense grade. He did have an 8.6 run stop rate, which is elite from PFF. Upside wise, he's got a lot of pass rush upside. I think probably more than any of the guys we've talked about so far. Like I said a minute ago, if you had Ian, who's your favorite DT in this class? It's Capehart. Will he be there in round 4, round 5? Yes, I would take him over Corleone. Again, I like the 3-techs better, honestly. Strengths for him, his physique is a big strength. He's massive. He's got great length. Strikes quickly and uses his leverage. Lifts, presses, and muscles through blockers. He's a brute, man. He's just a brute. Really solid, quick first step. Obviously, the athleticism shows that. He eats blocks and maintains his footing very well. His one-on-ones, he showed a lot of pass rush juice. So if he does get one-on-one with a center or guard, I do think he can win easily with a bit more coaching. Weaknesses, his technique is sloppy. He gets a lot of wins just from effort. That could be honestly a strength, depending on how you look at it. His hand usage and his openers as a pass rusher are pretty inconsistent. He doesn't really have a counter outside of his bull rush, but you can coach that. And then the other thing that they put on NFL.com that's very obvious is he comes in too high at times. So a lot of times if he just shoots too high and he gets thrown away pretty quickly. Capehart's one of my favorites. He's a round 4 guy, but I would not be shocked if someone took him in round 3. And if it was the Packers, I wouldn't be super upset about it. But if you get him in round 4, I'd be ecstatic. The last guy I'm going to do full detail on, I really like, is Caleb Proctor from Southeastern Louisiana. So small school guy. He's 6'2", 291. So he's a little bit small, super athletic. He ran a 4.75 40. It's awesome. He had a 91st percentile broad jump. He's an athlete, man. He's an athlete. PFF has him at 111. Consensus is 132. Again, consensus is late on him. He's rising probably in the boards. I would not take him any earlier than round 4. I like Caleb Proctor. He's probably only a 3-tech. I don't think he can play nose tackle, but again, you got to look at the thing is, I know we've already talked about this, but you have to consider 3-techs in terms of what the Packers need as well. And we'll talk about it on the next episode of our podcast of just kind of what the shelf looks like for players. They need 3-techs too. So while he can't play nose tackle, I don't think he can. He'd be a really good 3-tech to pick up. Really high upside 3-tech. PFF had him graded very well, but competition has to be mentioned here. 86 grade last year, 90 pass rushing grade, 74 run defense grade, so not terrible. His pass rush win rate, though, was 13.7. It's not bad. 3-tech, that's pretty solid. 84 pass rush grade in general from True Pass Sets, solid. I think he's got a ton of juice as a pass rusher. He had 9 sacks last year. That's pretty good. Now, in terms of his strengths, I pulled these right from NFL.com. I actually did not see much of Caleb Proctor. I couldn't find a lot of tape from him. Strengths, first step quickness is awesome. Similar to Carl Brooks. I brought up another guy earlier who reminded me of Brooks a little bit. Elite playmaking range as a pass rusher and run defender. Shows quality bend and acceleration for a 3-tech. You love to see that. He has a nose for getting after the quarterback. And he's great at twists and stunts, which makes him interesting for the Packers also. Weaknesses. Obviously, the competition is a weakness because when you're playing guys in whatever the hell conference Southeastern Louisiana's in, you're just going to look pretty good. Now, The same production, if he was at Alabama, we'd be talking about a round 2 guy. The question is, would he actually have that production? Probably not. It's hard to get off blocks in the run game for him. He gets stuck on their hands. That's a problem because NFL guys are going to manhandle him. Now, he has a ton of frame. I didn't mention this earlier, but for being as athletic as he is, being in the 290s, he's got a ton of room for growth yet. That's why I like him a lot, because you could build another 20 pounds on him and not lose much athleticism, and he's got a ton of time to do it. He would not have to play early. This scouting report says he's a niche NFL fit. Now, I agree with the fact that at least initially he's a niche NFL fit. Guys like this can be used even early as a 3 technique on like 2nd down and 10, where there's a chance they could throw the ball. I think there's definitely room for him in the NFL and even on the Packers. Competition's the main reason he's a round 4 guy, but I like his potential. I really do. He'd be a guy, if you took him in round 5, I'd be really happy with it. Where the Packers will see him, he does not match perfect types at all. You look at ceiling with him. The other thing you got to look at, guys, when we talk about these types, Jonathan Gannon, it's his first season. We don't know who he's looking for. Goody has made adjustments to guys he's picked based on the coaches they've hired. Look no further than what they did with special teams. So there's a chance that while Proctor might not be a guy that they would typically like, they might like him in terms of what he could do for them. Similar to what they did with Colin Oliver last season. Let's go into some honorable mentions here. No particular order. This guy, Ontario Johnson, not even on the consensus board, but my God, he's a freak. He has a 9.37 RAS, 93rd percentile broad jump, so that checks all the boxes. 6'2", 317, so plenty big. But again, not being on the consensus board, he's like maybe a UDFA guy, but interesting. Corey Walker from Wisconsin. He's kind of a tweener. He's like 6'5", 273. They haven't listed or defensive tackle, but he's kind of an edge hybrid. I like him. If you guys watch Wisconsin this season, I don't watch Wisconsin football anymore. I know it's kind of embarrassing, but by all accounts, he could be a tweener that could fit on a certain NFL team. Kind of like Ty Robinson last year. If you guys remember him, I was really high on him last season. He was like an edge defensive tackle hybrid. That's kind of how I see Corey Walker in terms of athletically, but he's not even on the consensus board either. So those are 2 guys I like in terms of that are honorable mentions. To kind of put a bow on the episode, they need a nose tackle desperately. The calculation they're going to have to make is, do you take a guy that only plays early downs and doesn't have any pass rushing chops in round 2 or round 3? I would not. I know I'm sort of out of the norm here from Packers content creators, but whatever you want to call me, a novice Packers content creator. I would not pick a guy that's strictly a run defender that early. I just would not do it. Now, I feel that's how the Packers look at it too. There's been no evidence to suggest, at least since Goody's been here, that they prioritize this position. Whether we agree or disagree, there's no evidence to suggest that. Warren Brinson, round 6. We saw Montrevious Adams. He was round 3, but he was also a 3 tech. I think he might have been under Ted, actually, but either way. We look at Nazir Stackhouse. He was an undrafted guy. That was their nose tackle plan last season. It's a bad plan. Maybe they like him better. I have a hard time believing they're going to pick one of these nose tackle only guys at 52 or 84. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see, right? I would be a little upset if they did. So let's go through the guys one more time that we went over. Dominique Orange, probably going to be a round 2 guy. If the Packers took him in round 3, I'd be okay with it. Wouldn't love it. Grayson Halton, round 3 as well, but I think he has a lot more upside than Dominique Orange. He's a guy I like quite a bit better. Daryl Jackson Jr., round 3, round 4. Corleone, round 4, round 5. Demonte Capart's a round 4 guy. Caleb Proctor is probably a round 5 guy as well. So that's a list. That's a 6 that I like the most that makes sense for the Packers. There's plenty of guys I left off. I have to obviously shed a little bit of weight on these episodes to not make them an hour long. Next season, and this is what we're going to go over in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. The Packers have like 10 picks next season. I think it might be 11, actually. And some of those picks are round 3, round 4, round 5, right, from all the comp picks. Guarantee you they will pick defensive line next year. They will prioritize a DT somewhere in there. If you told me coming into the season, though, that they did not draft a defensive tackle to play nose, would not shock me. So is it the biggest need on the team? I think it is. But it would not shock me at all if we don't see one in the draft till round 5 or later. So that's going to do it for the defensive tackle preview. I've already hinted at the next episode a little bit on this podcast. We're going to go position by position and essentially do like a inventory, right? What guys do we have this season? What guys do we have next season and the season after? And how will that shape the way the Packers draft this season and go into next season? That's what we're going to talk about. So stay tuned for that one. That's going to do it for today's episode. I appreciate you guys listening and watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys are listening to it, I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel a little bit. We're getting about 100 views average. The cornerback preview episode went off. I'd love to keep growing the YouTube channel. If you guys subscribe there, like the video on YouTube. If you can leave a comment, leave a 5-star review on the podcast platforms, I'd appreciate that. Download it. That helps a lot. But in the meantime, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will see you on the next episode. Go Pack Go.